Welcome into The Official. I'm your host, Alfred, and we've got a great show tonight. So, high school games have kicked off, and some teams have played one, some teams have played up to two games already. We want to check in on these guys. We've been reviewing their film all summer long. We've got rankings already. Matt and David, as you know, have been putting together all their film grades and production grades and everything of these guys up through their junior season. And a lot of guys are now putting senior film on tape. Some, obviously, the rising sophomores are now putting junior on tape. So this is our first look at how did they improve in the offseason? Are they looking different? Are they looking better? And maybe predict what's going to happen as the recruiting cycle comes to an end. But there will be movers and shakers along the rankings as we go. So that's what we got on store for you. And we got a special guest to bring in some firsthand eyewitness accounts of some of these high school football games this past week. This is The Official. All right, everybody, we've got a fuller house, if you will, and caught the reboot on Netflix. Welcome into the show, Sports Fanatic MB, founding member of Campus Canton, Matt Bruening. Thank you for gracing us with your presence tonight.
Absolutely. I'm excited to second appearance on has anybody else had a second appearance on The Official? If not, I feel
so. No,
I am honored to be the first one. I thought for sure it'd be Austin, but I appreciate you guys bringing me back.
Yeah, well, you're an honorary member of the recruiting team, of course, and you've done a lot of effort already in keeping track, like real-time updates on high school football games. So, we do a lot of stuff in the off-season. We're going to have the in-season college football fantasy, all that going on, but we still need to keep an eye on these guys who are going to be the next crop of freshmen as we get into the 2023. I mean, it never ends. There's always a new event on the horizon we need to be preparing for. So thank you for joining us, Matt. Of course, we got my guy Matt and David on the recruiting side, and we're going to dive into what these guys are doing already in this 2022 high school football season. But before we get started, remember to like and subscribe this video if you enjoy the content. Visit our home website, campus2canton.com. We just initiated a brand new in-season subscription for $29.99. You get all of our highest level tier membership for the season through January 15th. And then you're also going to get the betting content. So a lot of the college betting content we're going to do, that's 2 DFS articles, 1 prize picked article, as well as access to Chris Moxley and my personal betting lines that we are putting our own hard-earned money onto this season. So in addition to the NIL chat tier in our Discord, so you can get all the latest things we're thinking. I mean, really just full access to everything we're considering. So check that out or become a full-time member. That's great too, starting at $29.99 a year. Gentlemen, we ready to talk some high school football? I want to throw it to the group. There was a tremendous game this past week. I mean, really incredible. Some, like a whole half dozen at least of like top 100 players in the country, all in the same field. And interestingly enough, this was not some divisional matchup. This was American Heritage from down in Miami playing Los Alamitos from all the way in California. So a tremendous top high school football game. What did you guys think? Give me the high points. Let's go around the horn. Matt, let's see. Matt Powell, big wide receiver guy, you're up first.
Yeah, you should probably actually skip me because I was busy watching a very, very boring Northumberland game, which probably had 60 people watching in total. So why don't David and Matt take this one?
Let's go with the other Matt Bruening. What did you think of American Heritage facing off against Malachi Nelson, number 1 player in the class, I think, on some lists, Los Alamitos?
Yeah, he was actually, which I did not know. I found this out watching the game, that apparently he is ESPN's number 1 player. They mentioned that multiple times throughout the broadcast. They were very excited to be broadcasting that game, but I feel like calling it a game is being kind. They lost pretty easily, 56-27. I mean, Malachi Nelson did look for the most part good in that game. He only passed for like 213 yards, was a big step down from his first game where they played Garces, which when we were watching that game, I reached out to David and Matt. I was like, hey guys, like what is Garces any good? And they were like, no, there's most of those guys are playing like offense and defense. But I believe Malachi Nelson went in the first half. It was like 15-16 for like 200 something yards and 4 touchdowns. Definitely struggled here against American Heritage. Overall, I still think he had his moments and looked good. David had posted a video on Twitter actually about like I think it was the first play of the game. David, they did like that flea flicker trick play, and he had a wide receiver wide open. He just missed him. I wanted to watch it for obviously him. You had Mekhi Lemon, Brandon Ennis, Mark Fletcher. Fletcher a little bit lower on everybody's boards, but being an Ohio State fan, I just kind of wanted to see what he looked like. Ennis, I thought looked good, and Mekhi Lemon had a beautiful catch. I think him and Zachariah Branch probably have a competition going on right now for some of the best catches I've seen so far this year. Well, we've only seen 1 week of college technically, but of like high school catches with the catch he made in the corner of the end zone, and same with Zachariah Branch. But it was interesting. I really thought this was going to be a better game than what it turned out to be. And honestly, a little disappointed that Nelson wasn't able to look better. Only passed for 230 yards.
Yeah, I think we obviously are all focused on the offensive side, and you listed off all these names, but I know American Heritage has at least 2 or 3 defensive backs, I think, that are going, FBS and some to the Power 5 level. So, they're kind of maybe more of a complete team. We know Los Alamitos has Lemon and Nelson on the offensive side of the ball. David, what did you take from this? I mean, like Matt said, there's a lot of guys in this game we've watched closely. We've watched their highlights. If you watch them but sometimes a full game paints a different picture.
Malachi Nelson, I thought he was solid. He didn't necessarily like blow me away. It was a lot of like shorter intermediate stuff. Like Matt just mentioned, he kind of missed a couple of long ones. I think he was just kind of jacked up for being, he's on ESPN too, so it was like a big moment. But he's squarely in tier 1 still. Nothing really changed there. There were some other guys that kind of stood out. One guy was Blake Murphy. I gotta pump this guy up a little bit because I'm pretty sure he made the SportsCenter top 10 for one of it. He had like a 70-yard touchdown run. He had 106 yards on the game, 2 rushing touchdowns, 2 passing touchdowns. I put the highlight on my Twitter. He had a nice touchdown pass to Brandon Ennis in the corner of the end zone. So he's small. He's a small player, whatever. He's like 5'11", 170. So I don't know if he'll get any Power 5, like bigger Power 5 teams. If he'll get any looks from those guys, but he's at least interesting for like a G5 producer going forward.
Blake Murphy. Just for anyone who may not be familiar, Blake Murphy is the quarterback for American Heritage. Like David mentioned, really fun dual threat looking guy.
Yep. And then Malachi Tony is just some guy way down the road to keep an eye on. The Brandon Ennis said he might have the best freshman year ever for American Heritage. So he's a receiver that caught. He had 103 yards and a touchdown, I believe. And then he kind of went viral he essentially nonchalantly said that he's a dog, more or less, in an interview that he had on. So he just basically said like, yeah, I'm really good. I don't know, like it was a pretty cool moment there. But yeah, Mark Fletcher, he kept getting comparisons to Tavion Thomas on the telecast. You kind of see that, like he's not fast, like, but he's big and he can break tackles. So that's those are the takeaways I had.
Yeah, I think it's pretty crazy. Obviously, Malachi Tony, you mentioned him, like a freshman in high school. So we have not even looked at that. We haven't even touched it, but pretty impressive. Week 1, he had 6 for 103, which was the same number of catches as Brandon Ennis. So you've got a freshman in high school who's commanding targets opposite a D1 high Power 5 recruit. Like that's something. So we got plenty of ways to watch him grow, but Malachi Tony is a name to remember for sure. All right. And then I know you guys watched some games. I know Matt mentioned he was watching a very boring game, Northumberland. Anybody want to throw out another game before we get to a couple of clips that have surfaced on some of these other key players' first games?
I spent a lot of time Friday watching the St. John Bosco Allen game, which again it ended up not really being a game. Michael Hawkins still had a really big run in that game, which I thought was impressive, but kind of the big question around him has always been his passing. He did not have much passing. In fact, he threw like multiple interceptions in that game. Granted, I think the one thing you take away, and I was arguing with a lot of Allen fans about this on Twitter, was St. John Bosco is the only high school in America that the entire team has signed an NIL deal. Each of those players on St. John Bosco made $200 for that game Friday night. So like those guys are very, very good. We shouldn't just look. I mean, they're the number one rated team in the nation for a reason. I believe Allen going into the weekend was like 69. So it's not, it sounds like it's not that bad. There's a pretty big difference in my opinion between those two. The one thing I did want to talk about though was Pierce Clarkson. And again, maybe Allen's defense not quite as good as the competition he will typically face throughout the year, but I thought he looked really good in this game. Really sharp passing the ball down the field. He was 9 for 19. He just had 156 yards passing with 3 touchdowns. But he had a couple plays like down the field, a couple like really good throws over the middle with a lot of velocity. Like we've talked, I know in the recruiting channel a lot, like our biggest thing with him is we want to see him challenge down the field a little bit more. And he did that in this game, which was kind of what I'm hoping to see more of as they continue to play this season.
Yeah, that's a great point though. And that, I think that is a great segue to talking about, when we're looking at these games, obviously we've seen a lot of these guys' junior tape, and I firmly believe you can get a pretty good feel already as a high school junior what you're looking at in these prospects, as I've been doing it now for a few years. But there are key guys that you're like, I want to see X, Y, and Z. I want to see certain things start developing to make him a more complete player. And you just outlined it perfectly with Clarkson, and maybe we'll see more of that, and he'll be that cherry on top of the Louisville recruiting class in 2023. One guy I wanted to bring up, and we dropped his newest first game of the year highlights in our Slack channel, is Reuben Owens, who I think as a group we're a little lukewarm on him. And again, watching him, he just doesn't look special. He's fast and he can run in a straight line. We know we've clocked him at high MPH. What do y'all think about that first game? He put up stats like he always does, but like I just don't see tremendous, athleticism. And he's another Louisville commit, actually. So he's not showing me anything advanced from his other tape, I don't think.
I would say you're probably underselling his athleticism a little bit. I mean, just pure numbers-wise, he scores very highly. But just on the film alone, I think you can see he moves pretty fluidly, laterally. And Austin did bring up a good point where he has trouble gearing down sometimes, where he has to, make a move while he's running full speed or close to it. And he can struggle there. He kind of pedals down a little longer than you'd like to see. I mean, overall, we're looking at a guy that's going to put up 2,000 yards rushing this year, probably over 500, 500 to 1,000 receiving yards. So I don't have too many concerns, at least of how he's going to be as a college producer. I think he's kind of going to be set up there going to Louisville, and they're definitely utilize his receiving ability.
Yeah, I agree with Matt there. I just, the college side, I think we've all talked about it's what NFL future does he have, but him going to Louisville, I think is like the perfect fit for him. I think he should do well there, but he's on the older side of things as well, Matt. Isn't that one of the things that's brought it? So he's a little bit older than most of the other prospects, but I mean, that worked out for guys like Najee. I'm not comparing him to Najee Harris, but if he ends up going possibly early second round at the end of the day in the NFL, like he's a guy we can bet on for fantasy for probably that first contract and move on. But I'm excited about, I think Louisville's a really good fit for him. So I am excited about that.
Yeah. I mean, he should get 20 touches a week right off the bat at Louisville, I would think. I wanted to throw a name out there who I was looking at guys whose names I recognize that had senior tape out. Not everyone has put games out just yet. David, I'm going to throw this to you. We haven't talked a ton about him, but speaking of Austin, Matt brought up Austin, one of our founding members. Kenny Minchie is going to go to Pitt, unless he flips or something. I had not been terribly impressed. I saw him at the Nashville Elite 11 regionals, but David, do you have any formed opinions on Minchie? I don't think you had seen him live because I don't think we went to the finals, right?
Yeah, I saw him live at the finals. he's a tier 2 guy for me right now. I think his physical tools are kind of catching up to his brain. Like I think he's a smart player. He was a little bit of a late bloomer. I think he recently added like 2 inches of height. So and he looks stronger. His arm looks stronger to me. He actually tested pretty well, I believe, at the regional, like athletically. Like he actually had like a 37-inch vertical. So he can create outside the pocket as well. But so far this season, through 2 games, he's been super efficient. I don't think he has an interception at this point, and he's completing like 70% of his passes. So, yeah, the competition might not be great, but I think he has a pretty good floor as a passer at the next level. I don't know, as far as like NFL prospects, I'm not sure, but I like his floor as a player.
Yeah, watching that first game of his senior season, I mean, I just thought he had a much quicker release than I noticed at the regional. I mean, it's only been a few months, but like he was doing some stuff, read option and pulling it and then firing a quick slant really quickly. I know there was at least one play like that. I just thought he was making very quick decisions. And like you said, that arm looks good. So Kenny Menchie, initial riser for me, I think, a guy who I saw in person and wasn't really blown away, but that tape looks interesting, and maybe he's refined some of that release and some different things like that. I know I overheard him talking to his quarterback coach at the regional, and there were some things they were working on, which could be coming to fruition now that we're in game speed. All right, and of course I got to mention Eugene Wilson. Did the Gators find a gem here? He's not super highly rated. I mean, I think he's a 4-star. On3 has him as a top 10 receiver, but no one else does even close. Matt, David, Bruening, any of you guys have an opinion on Wilson? I'm pretty impressed, and he has been lighting it up in the first 2 weeks of his high school senior season.
Yeah, I wasn't that high on him off his junior tape. I liked his movement skills for sure, and definitely, he's a good fit at corner too, which I wouldn't, obviously he's not going to now. Like, we know he's going to Florida, but that could have ended up maybe even being a better position for him. But I was really impressed with these first 2 game highlight tapes they put up. He's moving really good. I saw that nasty hurdle. I think it was on interception. Just really, really dynamic plays. And I'm probably too low on him right now. He's in my tier 3, but at the top. He might be bumping up to tier 2.
So I did not put this in the chat because I did not want your pants to get a little bit tight. I actually have him at the top of my tier 2. So you posted that, and I put so in his first game he had an interception and a receiving touchdown in his first game, and I believe even in the second game he was either a kick return or a punt return touchdown as well. So he's scoring all over the field. I went and watched that first game back, and then I went back and watched some of his junior, and he came out as like the second wide receiver for me in tier 2. Where I agree with Matt on the defensive side of the things with the cornerback, I think he brings that mentality sometimes to playing wide receiver, the way he attacks the ball in there, which I like. Like, that's one of the reasons I'm so high on DeAndre Moore as well. Like, I like the aggressiveness he brings to the wide receiver position, how he attacks the ball in the air. Like, I'm super high on him. I know I don't think we have a miles per hour for him. I was hoping we could get that. I think I yelled at Matt at like 10 o'clock at night last night because I wanted to see if he had it, because I wanted to know how fast he was, because he looks fast on tape, but I don't know exactly like how fast he's actually moving.
Yeah, well, that's great. I appreciate you guys pumping up my Gator commit, Eugene Wilson. But yeah, like you said, the most exciting thing is the first 2 games he scored like multiple ways in all phases of the game, even on defense, just destroying it. I mean, he plays in, I think, Tampa area high school football, which is a pretty decent, I mean, I don't know exactly the classification, but I think Gaither is a somewhat decently large high school in an area that has plenty of athletes. So it's not like he's beating up on zeros. A couple of quick hitters. Jackson Arnold, 64-yard touchdown run. Is he a dual threat?
He has been. That's nothing new.
All right.
He was a 1,000-yard rusher last year. He had double-digit touchdowns, rushing touchdowns.
All right. Oklahoma got maybe a stud in Jackson Arnold. Just impressive to see a 64-yarder at any point. And then we're all a little bit low on, except for me, I might need to bump him down. Noah Rogers. Now, Matt, give us a quick synopsis of what you think of Noah Rogers, because I think it came to fruition here in his first season.
Yeah, I feel like I summed up pretty good at the summit last time, and now it kind of just backed me up even more. But I think he's a guy where his highlights are very good, but all the plays in between are very not good. He's very good down the field. He has good hands. He can make the big catches. But a lot of the times he's just out there jogging around. He's not really blocking. He only got targeted 2 times in the game I saw from, I believe it was on Friday, the replay. 2 targets, 1 catch, 10 yards, 0 touchdowns. I think he had one little end around for maybe 5 or so yards. So it was a pretty bad performance. They got blown out 47-0. It's just not something you want to see, especially for someone where I'm already kind of low on him. I've now watched 3 full games of him, and every time I've come away unimpressed. So,
yeah, Dave and I like the highlights. We've been vocal.
I like the highlights. It's hard.
Everyone does. Yeah, I mean, I think Noah Rogers could be a very good example of you got to have a holistic view of these players, and huddle tape is sometimes the best we can do in a pinch, but overall production, I mean, guys like that shouldn't be get 2 targets. I mean, that's insane. And, getting blanked when you're supposed to be so good. I mean, make something happen. I know he's not the quarterback, but still. Speaking of making something happen, David, have you seen Arch Manning's stats from his first game in his senior season?
Yeah, so he was 6 for 12 for 81 yards, 0 touchdown passes, 1 interception. He also had I think it was a 20-yard touchdown run that kind of went viral. I think it got like 3 million views.
Wow.
And honestly, it almost looked like it was in slow motion. And I don't know, the team he was playing was very cautious to tackle him. It was a strange touchdown, but I don't know. We just need to see better production out of him. Like,
I don't know how you have a guy like that attempt 12 passes. Like, that doesn't even compute.
I don't know, and it's all low. It's you tracked his ADOT from his junior tape, and it was super low. It's just all of it is just like checkdowns and stuff and short stuff. So it's just like, I don't know. Can we open up the offense a little bit and have some fun a little bit? So I don't know. We'll see. Hopefully things get better going forward.
I mean, I have no idea. Maybe he's just mailing it in and just ready to go to college. He should have reclassified if that's the case. But Arch, I mean, I don't even know. I literally do not know what to do with that. I don't see how you're the coach of Arch Manning in high school. And it's like, our game plan is let him throw it 6 times or 12 times. Like, that's just insane. All right. Well, that wraps up at least some of the key guys, I think, from the first week when they're not everyone's even put huddle tape yet onto the website. So we're still having some of these games creep in. But I wanted to mention we do have a few commitments. Anthony Evans going to Oklahoma. Anybody have opinions on Anthony Evans? I have actually not watched him too closely yet this season.
I'm not a fan. He's one of those guys where he's all athlete. I don't see a lot of football player there. He's a really, really, really high-end track guy. I believe he ran a 10-2 something 100-meter this spring. So, yeah, he can cook, but he's more of like that, the Anthony Schwartz type where, he might get drafted just on his athletic upside, but he's more track athlete than football player.
The kiss of death, man. More athlete than football player. That never seems to pan out. Jacoby Lane going to USC, 6'5", I believe, and like 185 pounds. So this guy, don't even mention his name to Austin Nace. He will not want to have anything to do with him. What do we see in Jacoby Lane? Like, is he going to – I'm a little nervous. I mean, that is really tall and really light. What do you guys see with him, and how is he going to fit in at USC?
If nobody else has, I don't know who else has graded Lane yet, but I have, and I really like him. I think he might actually have the best hands in this class. It's between him and Noah Rogers. Not the best athlete, but he's really big and he kind of dominates, above the rim like he should. Decent after the catch. I don't think he's like that desirable of an NFL prospect. I think he could end up being pretty decent there at USC. He fills a role they don't really have anymore. I think the only 6'2" plus wide receiver they have is Kyle Ford. Maybe they have one more, but they used to get a ton of those guys, and now not so much. So I think he could thrive there on the outside for them in a few years.
Potentially reminiscent of Mike Williams, except like 50 pounds lighter. So we'll see what happens. I mean, Tom Skinny is a little nerve-wracking for me as a prospect. But then we've got DeQuavius Sorey. He was a Georgia commit. He was rumored to look at Florida. Then I heard Florida wanted him as a safety. And now he's committed to Auburn. I honestly had forgotten about this guy. He is listed, I believe, as a wide receiver. And so I'm wondering, does anybody know if he's going to Auburn because they will let him play wide receiver? Or should we not even waste our time because he's going to be on defense? Do we have any opinion there?
I'm pretty sure he's playing wide receiver.
I think he's probably looking for a place that would let him, is what I kind of gather.
Yeah, I know he's my lowest grade player currently. I think he's Austin's lowest graded player currently too. So yeah, I think that's pretty much all. He's
kind of like that power forward type that just seems to be bodying smaller high school players and doesn't seem to have a lot of translatable skills. But hey, Auburn will take him. And then we got two low 3 stars, but going to G5 schools, which is always kind of intriguing because sometimes we see these guys, and if they happen to be gems, we can project early playing time. I'll throw it to the group, and again, it might be Matt because you're the deepest down the rabbit hole. But Christian Davis, 3-star running back going to Ball State, and Kamari Moulton, a 3-star running back going to FAU. Do we see early playing time or some hidden gems here with either of these two guys?
I haven't really seen much of either of them, really, so I don't know. Just say that.
Yeah, I did drop these two guys in the chat because they committed in the last week and didn't know. Yeah, I never know. Sometimes you guys are pulling guys out of thin air, and you're like, oh, I love this guy. I'm like, I haven't even heard of him. So you just never know. But suffice to say, Christian Davis, Kamari Moulton, check them out, and we will take a look as the season rolls along. Of course, we're building our database and all that good stuff. Well, we are pretty close to time, but thank you, Matt Bruening, for showing up here, wearing the Campus to Canton polo. We love to see it. You look very professional tonight. But yeah, so that's a first look at what these guys are putting on the field. Some will move up, some will move down, and we will keep mining the recruiting rankings for all of you out there who want to know these names first. Who's making a move? You can know it before. I think that my takeaway from this tonight, I think it's kind of unanimous among our group, and I think it's going to be carry over into the actual recruiting rankings. Eugene Wilson's going to rise. I mean, he is doing some special stuff right now. That's one you can absolutely circle. And then Kenny Minchie was my personal one. So I'll close it up here. And I'll throw a name out there. We talked about freshmen who are already on campus a few episodes ago, who was making some moves. We did some weight gainers and some weight losers, etc. But now that we're in week 1, this is week 1 right now. Saturday is the first opening day for so many of these teams. Who's your favorite freshman that you can celebrate and say, man, I am right on this guy? I'm going to go ahead and say it's Kobe Prentice for me. He's starting in the slot for Alabama. The depth chart came out today. He's over an upperclassman in Christian Leary, or at least the older player in Christian Leary, who a lot of people like. So he's like, there was an injury to JoJo Earl, but he's still beating out an older guy. And I called him from the moment I saw his tape and really liked him. So that's why I'm going to pat myself on the back with Kobe Prentice. Very exciting stuff there. Matt Bruening, who's your freshman?
It's got to be Quinshon. And I think I believe one of my very first interactions on Twitter was with big wide receiver guy Matt, because he was also talking about him. He was a guy that I did a YouTube show, I want to say it was like back in December maybe, with Austin, and we talked about our top 12 freshman running backs at the time, and Austin had him ranked as like RB33, and was like, he's not going to be that good. Now, lo and behold, he's come in. He's been nicknamed the freshman freak at Ole Miss. He's going to be getting rushes behind Zach Evans already as a freshman. He was a guy that we touted as well a lot in the freshman guide. I believe we ended up putting him up in tier 2. David, I believe, liked him as well. So he was one of the guys that like none of the other recruiting services liked, but we liked. So he's up there. I want to just tout really quick the whole group on the Emmanuel Henderson thing as well, because we talked about how that was not going to work out a lot at Campus to Canton. He was going to move to wide receiver, and that happened. So big props to the group on that one as well.
Yeah, we're checking some boxes. Big wide receiver guy.
Yeah, I wasn't really ready for this question. I got a few I could pull out. Like I could have done Judkins, but Matt just stole them from me. Would Andre Green be a good enough one? I feel like most of you weren't that high on him.
I wasn't.
So I believe he ended up as my wide receiver 5 or wide receiver 6. So I was fairly high on him, and he's been coming out. He did great during camp, and he should get some decent playing time this year and light it up.
All right,
I could have also pulled out Evan Stewart because all of you guys were haters on him too.
Okay, I'm sure you got a bunch of wins.
Wait, actually, Barryon Brown. Let's just switch it to Barryon Brown. Now that he's declared.
I loved Barryon Brown. All right. In any case, big wide receiver guy, Andre Green is a big wide receiver, so living up to his name there. And then David, who's your freshman you're going to celebrate?
I think I've missed on everyone so far. No, I think the first guy I wrote up was actually Marion Hampton, who I got. This isn't really a victory lap. I mean, they literally played like Florida A&M, and British Brooks got hurt, so I don't know. He's producing early, which is good to see. He had 100 yards and 2 touchdowns. Not necessarily a victory lap, but he looks like he'll be a good college producer at least. Yeah,
I mean, Campus to Canton's freshman of the week for week 0, Marion Hampton, and he's a guy that I'll say I may have missed on. I didn't think he quite had the juice, but already in camp they've been explosive. He's basically led the backfield in week 0. I don't care who the opponent is. When you come on campus as an 18-year-old and the coaches say, let's give him the ball, that is a big win. All right, gentlemen, thank you so much. It was a great show, and we will see you again next week. This is The Official.